Welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with me, Venus O'Hara. An orgasmic lifestyle is about reaching a climax in all areas of life, not just in the bedroom. Here, we dive deep with expert guests on topics like nutrition, spirituality, personal development, sexuality, and much more. Together, we'll explore lifestyle lessons to help you lead a life that's fulfilling, joyful, and unapologetically orgasmic. I'm your guide, Venus O'Hara. Welcome to episode 151 of the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with Venus O'Hara. In this first quarter moon episode, we discuss communication in relationships and ethical non-monogamy. We speak with Ali Iseman, the founder of Passport to Pleasure. I also review the book My Angel Coach. Receive your divine guidance and feel the angel's love. 63 messages to support and uplift you by Sue Elliott, and she is a future podcast guest. And the episode ends with a guided meditation with affirmations for healthy communication in relationships. But first, let me share with you some of my own reflections on healthy communication in relationships. Hello, dear listeners. Thank you so much for being here. And I must apologize for my small gap in production. I've actually been working on an app. Yeah, more about that very soon. But it's something that's consuming my time and energy in the thought processes. I can't wait to reveal more. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you today about communication. And our guest today, Ali Iseman, she is the founder of Passport to Pleasure. And even though, polyamory, that the topic of polyamory has come up a lot in this podcast, what I really wanted to focus on in this monologue of mine and in the affirmations track was communication, because my conversation with her definitely left a mark on me. And sometimes in life, you don't realize how impactful a conversation or a day is going to be in your life until afterwards. And that's exactly what it was like for me speaking to Ali Iseman. And even though, polyamory is not my preferred relationship style at all, I confess that I've shared many times on here that I have deep respect and admiration for the ways or the communication tools that are often used in this type of relationship. I think there's often more courage in communication compared to your average monogamous relationship, where I do think too often, there's too much emphasis on assumption rather than having the truth, knowing how do you know if someone's on the same page as you unless you actually check and ask those difficult questions. And these are things that we're not really taught. Not taught at school. We do have some basic sex education, but when it comes to relationships and love and how to navigate these things, we don't have anything as part of the syllabus, and we really should, because it's one of the most important parts of life. And people always say that the foundation of a healthy relationship is good communication. So how can we improve our communication? Well, something that impacted me a lot when I was speaking to Ali, which I've not even listened back to our interview, but something that stays in my mind, so let's see how this fits in with the actual interview, is that she said something like, when you are, let's say, defining a relationship or in that stage where you start seeing someone, one question to ask them is, what are you available for? And that sounds very simple, but I just had this aha moment, and it was very profound for me. And I was thinking about, while I was listening to her, I was thinking about how that question could impact my own personal life and situation at the time when I was speaking to her. So I decided to do something brave and ask the person in my life at the time, what are you available for? And I think I had this, very strong suspicion that it wasn't going to be what I was available for. And it was going to be one of those moments of truth where once the truth is uncovered, you can't unsee it. But before I got to that moment, soon after my conversation with her, I had to run out of the house and go to a tantra event. I mean, what a great day. But I didn't have time to actually eat anything. So I just went into this supermarket and bought some protein bars, vegan protein bars, just to try and make sure I'm not going to faint. And this particular event that I was going to attend was all about communication, and nonviolent communication specifically, and active listening. And I'm really curious about why there's so much, or in a lot of Tantra events, why this the presence of nonviolent communication. I do think it's a wonderful tool, but its relation to the tantric world is something I'm not really. I don't really know much, or the why behind it. But if you're not familiar with nonviolent communication, it's a framework about, let's say, expressing needs, maybe frustrations or something negative, in a way that's very, very diplomatic, that invites collaboration as opposed to defensiveness. And it's a framework of, when I see I feel because my need for is not met. Could you So it starts off with an observation, and then your feelings, and then a request, something like that. Needs and then request. So it's kind of a really nice way to reframe how you speak to your partner. I mean, a very simple example would be, instead of saying to someone, "You never take the bins down, I'm doing it all the time," or "You never clean the kitchen," because I mean, in many relationships, those little things can become big things and create resentment. But if you say something like, "When I see that you never wash up, I feel that you're not pulling your weight because my need for equality in a clean environment is not met. Could you please help me?" Then that's going to invite a more kind of collaborative response, or at least it should. Hopefully. And so that was what we were doing in this Tantra event. And also we did some active listening exercises. And what really I found very interesting about active listening is sometimes it makes you think about how we communicate with people. I mean, sometimes when we are engaged in a conversation, we can often bring examples back to us when someone's explaining something from their day, and then you make it, "Oh yeah, I did that too," and then you make it about you. But other times, some people just need you to listen, and you to nod your head without giving advice or sharing an example of your own, something similar that you've experienced. And what was interesting is that we did a kind of non-active listening and active listening, just to kind of compare and contrast these methods. And I was sitting opposite people that I didn't even know their names, and they were expressing some very deep frustrations with me, or things that were present in their life at the time. And I remember this woman in particular, and she had this very sad look in her eyes during one of the exercises, and I was just nodding, but just wishing that my gaze could penetrate her in a spiritual and emotional way, just to give her support. And it was very thought-provoking, especially after having that conversation with Ali as well. And all this was going through my mind very profoundly. And I thought, I need to find the courage to ask for what I want in my life. And I did. And I would say, in simple terms, you could say it backfired, but sometimes what we want isn't what we need. And I got exactly what I needed. I was able to uncover my suspicions were true, that what I was available for were not the same thing as this other person. And it's really interesting, the whole topic of communication and conflict and growth. And that's something that I've been really interested in ever since then. I've been doing so much research about relationships through books, podcasts, etc. And I'm just fascinated how the dynamics of relationships work. I think in my younger years, I just used to think, oh, we vibe well, the sex is good, and we enjoy each other's company. And then you get to a point where that kind of runs out. But I think if you want to sustain something more long term, then you have to have different tools. And it's all about learning those tools. And also, it's really important to not be the only one in the relationship who has that curiosity for growth. And that's something that I found very, very frustrating, because I'm someone who is, I'm always, curious about learning, about growth. And if you're with someone who doesn't want to grow or doesn't have that curiosity, or for example, if you express something that's bothered you and they don't have the curiosity to understand what that was, how to improve, or how you're feeling, and instead they shut it down or dismiss you or gaslight you, that's just a real red flag. And I think sometimes, you want to be with someone who's equally invested, as you are in the relationship. The methodology of what investment looks like could be different, of course, but I think it's this has really opened my eyes to what follow through is, and what being connected or willing to actually establish something meaningful with someone, and what that actually means and what it doesn't mean as well. So this was a very interesting time in my life, and ever since then I've been researching, growing, and releasing as well, which has been incredibly powerful and empowering, and getting a lot of clarity on what I need. And I think sometimes something that I've learned as well is that I no longer fear conflict or difficult conversations. I think those are key for the good stuff, and the deeper conversations, the deeper connections, and the deeper rewards. So so I'm hoping you enjoy this conversation as much as I do. And also at the end of this episode, I've created some affirmations for healthy communication in relationships. And as I was recording it, I was like, yes, yes, yes. This is so how things should be, at least in my world. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this conversation. Are you looking for a new sex toy? If so, look no further. Go to svarkom.com, that is SVAKOM.com, and you can use the code Venus35 to get a 35% discount on anything site-wide. I'm always amazed by the quality and variety of the products on svarkom.com, and I have a growing collection that I can definitely recommend. If you're looking for something for solo use or with a partner, definitely check it out. Great quality, great orgasms, and a great discount, Venus35 at checkout. Svarkom.com, or check out the link in the show notes below. Enjoy! Now it's time for this episode's interview. We speak with Ali Iseman, the founder of Passport to Pleasure. Ali Iseman, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast, where every day is a climax. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm always happy to have another orgasmic experience.
Me too, me too. So for those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
Absolutely. So I am primarily a certified relationship coach. I'm also a non-monogamy educator and speaker on stages and screens of all sizes. I do commentary and that sort of thing. You see me in publications from the New York Times, Cosmopolitan, Well and Good, Grazia, all kinds of amazing places, talking about what it means to design relationships intentionally. So basically, I help couples who are curious. I also work with individuals, whether, they want to open up their relationship to invite other people in, or they want to explore play parties, or maybe they're just interested in learning about some new kinks, things like that, or they just want to open up more authentically about those things to each other. I help them open up without blowing up.
Oh, I love that. Open up without blowing up. So what inspired you to follow this path?
My own personal blow up. I think
Okay. Tell us about that.
So the long of that is back in 2016, what ultimately became my last monogamous relationship. Basically, I had realized that I had been what I call a serial monogamist, dating one person for about the same amount of time, then being single again for about the same amount of time, then boom, right into the next relationship. So when I realized that was a pattern, I'm a nerd. So I was like, let me mess with some variables. So that began my personal development journey. And then in a few subsequent relationships after that, I had begun exploring, my sexuality, my curiosities, and I was able to start opening up that conversation with a few partners. And that, led to the possibility of threesomes, never occurred. But then what led to what became my last monogamous relationship was the curiosity to explore beyond those boundaries. So my partner at that time, we were together for 2 years. He traveled a lot for work and I would join him when I could, but in some cases I couldn't. And so in one of these instances, I said, hey, you know what? If you meet somebody on the road, the hotel bar, whatever it is, send me a picture consensually, PG-13, and just, let me know how it is. And so one time he did end up meeting someone, sent me a photo. She was super cute. I was very excited. And they just stayed up all night talking. But I was so thrilled. It felt really good. It was very exciting. So another opportunity came about on another time he was out of town. And I actually had a friend that I had known for at this point, probably 6, 7 years coming into town. And we had had a sexual history, very, very much just friends. We'd already kind of explored that. There was nothing else there, but we're both hot people who enjoyed having fun sex. And I was like, this is a great opportunity. So I presented it to my partner. He gave me what he called his green light. And my friend and I had a wonderful night together. My partner had agreed that he wanted to hear from me afterwards. So I called him right away. I was so excited. I felt so connected to him. It opened up just this whole other level of what I call expansive love. And I was just bursting. I said, what do you want to hear from me? What do you want to hear about it? I want to share whatever you want to know. I feel so happy. I'm so connected to you. And it was just dead silence. And then all he said was, I can't believe you did it. And then that was sort of the beginning of this implosion. And to be fair, there were other issues in the relationship as well. This was not, by any means the reason, but it really enabled us to look at everything else going on and really have some hard conversations. And ultimately, I decided, you know what, this is actually real for me. I do need to explore this, and I need to explore this on my own so I don't, have any more what I call emotional casualties on my conscience. So that really began my journey of, what even is this? I didn't have terms like non-monogamy or compersion or things like that in my vocabulary at this time. So I just kind of opened up to dating apps and going to events and reading and exploring, and it's been a decade long plus journey. I've become certified as a relationship coach. I'm a leader and organizer within play party communities around the world, and found a lot of people coming to me for support and advice, and that's really what led to my certification process and the work that I do now.
But did it feel like a kind of unexpected double standard for you, that situation?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I mean, very, very. So I think I've very grateful for a number of factors that I would say aren't common in that circumstance for others, because I do work with people that are at that impasse often. One being that I had already begun my journey of personal development and really understanding myself and my boundaries and my needs and really valuing that rather than prioritizing everyone else over myself, which is something I did for a good portion of my life as a recovering people pleaser. In addition to that, we did seek counsel from we had a friend there were a couple, and they had actually introduced us, and they are monogamous and actually religious, and we sought their counsel. And I will say this is not what normally happens, so hear that. But they are actually the ones that reflected for us, hey, this is clearly real for Allie. You don't get to, beat her up for following the agreement you had, but you do get to decide if this is a journey you want to go on with her or not. And that reflection was really, really affirming. And I will forever be grateful to those friends for that. That is often not the case, generally because of, how these relationships are seen in the world. And, one version of monogamy is the only option, apparently, that people validate. It can often be a very invalidating experience to get support from your current, family, friends, et cetera, which is why I really recommend people seek out professional and experienced support as well.
So how did your personal journey become a professional journey?
A number of different things. I was in a career transition. I was ready to kind of do something for myself that I wanted to do. What was that? And it was just sort of reflecting on, I had left my previous role at the company I was with prior, and was just reflecting on what am I passionate about? What am I already doing in my life? And I realized there's all these elements that actually make up, what I'm interested in, which is I'm already providing guidance and support within the play party community, within the non-monogamous community at this time in Los Angeles. How can I turn that into something that can reach more people, that I can, share all of my knowledge in a, accessible and digestible way? And that was the groundwork for what became passporttopleasure.com, which is my global resource platform for educational material, coaching, event access, all kinds of things.
Wow. Something you mentioned earlier, which is really, I find really intriguing, is the concept of relationship design. Can you tell
Mhm.
us about that and how? Because I think a lot of people just we just make a lot of assumptions about relationships and assume that the other person's on the same page, and we're just following, norms of society, family, etc., culture. So, what is
Yeah.
relationship design? How can someone create their own ideal relationship?
Yeah, I mean, you have already hit the nail on the head. Relationship design is really the, response to a culture leaning on assumptions, and we all know what
Mm,
assumptions do, right? Cut
mm,
to a picture of a donkey. But it's really about understanding that these labels, whether it's, commitment, monogamy, non-monogamy, polyamory, swinging, whatever terminology you're using, that those are the beginning of the conversation, not the end of the sentence. It's important to understand these terms, but really use them as a way to explore what relationship building and nurturing looks like to you. What are you available for right now with this person in this context? Because we also treat relationship like a destination a lot of times in our culture, right? Like I like to say, Disney movies, rom-coms, fairy tales, they all end at the beginning of the relationship. The happily ever after is actually the relationship. That's why I call it a relation trip. It's
I
really an
love
on
that.
conversation. It's not like somewhere you get to. It's like, cool, hey, I want to have this conversation with you. Are you interested in that? Let's keep going. What does commitment mean to you? What does love mean to you? What is relationship? What kind of structures are you interested in? It's seen as like this hard work, I think a lot of times only because it's not an integrated conversation in our world. We talk about love, we talk about relationship, again, like it's this destination, this end result, rather than actually learning the tools and skills we need to build the relationships that we want and deserve.
I've been studying love a lot in the last couple of years, and last this year particularly, and I've come across a lot of terminology that I wasn't aware of, and one of them is the DTR talk. And I think, from my younger years, when you start having sex with someone and it was, repeated, and then that it becomes more and more intense, there was this assumption that you're together now, when you start spending all your weekends with someone. But how can someone approach that the DTR, to define the relationship conversation without scaring someone? Because I think a lot of times, there's this assumption that men are looking for freedom and women are looking for to kind of make men commit, which is I think DTR is super important just to kind of know you're on the same page and just know what's okay and what's not okay. Do you have any tips about how to approach that?
Absolutely. That again, it's not this destination, right? That are. If you're talking, if someone has hit on you on an app, you are in relationship. If you're chatting with somebody up at a bar, you're in relationship. All of this is relationship.
Mm,
The relationship puts a lot of pressure, right? So
mm,
that DTR defining, letting somebody know what you're available for is really, really helpful rather than grilling into them, what do you want? Let people know what you're available for. Come from your perspective and invite them to share what they're available for. These assumptions that X equals Y is
mm,
really what gets people in a lot of trouble, especially when it comes to like what I call compound meanings. One of the biggest ones being love, sex, and commitment. Well, I
mm,
assume that if we've had sex, you probably love me, and that means we're committed now. And I assume that you have the same definition for all three of those terms as I have. And we
mm,
never talk about it. And it's not that anyone's trying to necessarily hurt. I mean, very, very few people are actually actively trying to hurt other people, but it's not exploring, hey, what does this concept of love mean to you? What does sex mean to you? What is it that you enjoy about sex? What types of sex are you looking to have? How do you like to integrate that into your relationships? Just being curious rather than treating it like a sort of interview or something on a first date or whatever date. I think that's also key is like it's not one conversation again, because it's not one destination. It's understanding where somebody's at right now as it's relative to where you're at right now within the context of how you're meeting up. Does that make
mm.
sense?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I think it's also you have to kind of redefine over time. I mean, because
100%. Like this
mm,
this idea of life partner, right? Like you can only wear one outfit for the rest of your life. And I don't just mean one partner, like sexually, emotionally, what have you. That relationship may last a lifetime, but it may look a little different over time at different parts of each other's lives, depending on your growing and changing needs and availability. Just because you're maybe not available for one aspect of that relationship in the same way. Maybe you can't live together anymore for whatever reason. Maybe you're no longer interested in the same type of sex or whatever other element of relationship. Why are you going to throw out all the other aspects of that relationship that may be functioning beautifully and be really supportive to both of you just because one component maybe has shifted. Maybe it'll shift back to a place where you both meet again at another point. But this reactionary, I think, all or nothing mentality with the relationships is really hurting us, especially because we're not even having the conversations to understand what we want, if we've even reflected on what that is for ourselves.
What's been your biggest surprise on this journey? Something that's really got the biggest learning, but something that's really kind of you didn't something that you didn't expect.
I certainly fell for the idea. Okay, so let me rewind that. So part of my entry into this, consensually non-monogamous world was what I was experiencing that I thought was jealousy when I was still only practicing monogamy was actually compersion. So the
What's
joy
that?
or pleasure you feel from your partner experiencing joy or pleasure with someone else. I loved hearing about my partner's, previous relationships, or if they found someone else in the room attractive or whatever it was. It felt very good. Um,
To
I
the point where
didn't
it was a
know the word.
turn on? Was it like a turn on or
Oh,
just
yeah, we're getting into the realm of like erotic compersion, then there's erotic jealousy. I hadn't actually experienced jealousy. So I thought that's what jealousy was. I was like, I don't understand why it has such a bad rap. Like, this feels great. And then, of course, my journey progressed, and I came to compersion. And then I actually did get to experience jealousy in one of my earlier E&M relationships. It feels very, very different. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not supposed to, maybe I can't do E&M, maybe I can't do non-monogamy because I feel jealous. And you're not supposed to feel jealous because it's wrong and it's bad. But actually, it's also supposed to mean that if I'm jealous, that means I care. So maybe I do. And it was just this very confusing place because we get all this mixed messaging about jealousy, and including non-monogamous or polyamorous people don't get jealous.
Mm,
Incorrect. So, really coming to understand jealousy as just another emotional experience, providing information that I can choose whether or not I want to look at and grow from, was dramatically transformative for all of my relationships, both with myself, romantically, with friends, professionally. When you work on these relationship tools, they impact all of your relationships, not just romantic, not just sexual, family, friends, work. Your whole life expands from this work.
what was the biggest tool, or what was the biggest tool that helped you?
I mean, I actually created a framework called the Nerd Out on Jealousy technique. It's a step-by-step framework of how to turn jealousy from,
Mm.
a monster under the bed into your like best friend Jedi trainer, like
It's alchemy.
it really, really is though, because we're taught to avoid discomfort in our
Mm,
society. We're urging discomfort, like basically like feeling uncomfortable is the same as feeling unsafe to us a lot of times in our culture, but that's not the case. Uncomfortable is actually required for growth. You
mm.
require discomfort to grow. And so creating the skills that you need to support yourself in feeling uncomfortable enables growth. So I wish I could say like one tool. I mean, I explored a lot of different, cognitive behavioral practices, talk there, all kinds of different things, breathing techniques. And I distilled all of that down into my Nerd Out on Jealousy technique. So I'm happy to offer, that link to folks if they're interested. If we have show notes, we can share. But it's really just a process of one, not running away from it, not judging it, separating your identity from it. There's no such thing as a jealous person any more than there's a happy person or a sad person or an angry person. These are just emotional experiences that we all go through at some point in our life. Understanding what type of jealousy are you dealing with? Is it personal insecurity? Are you in comparison or competition? Is there an element of distrust in the relationship? Are you experiencing a fear of abandonment? Really understanding what kind, and then that helps you understand what is it telling you? What is the value here for you? Now it's become a tool in your own growth, and it actually becomes an opportunity for deeper intimacy and more trust in your relationship.
That's my assumption from a lot of people who I've interviewed in this world and people I know, that they have much better, more open and frank conversations. Would you say that's true from your experience about these taboo topics?
I think it's, I think we get into trouble when we say, folks in this group are generally
Mm,
more this and folks in this group are generally more that. Supporting a relationship, having a relationship with a person or multiple people requires a lot of the same skills. when you have a relationship that is not, the what is generally seen in the world at large, you are out of sort of the prescriptive relationship. You are actually making decisions on your own. You're not sort of just falling into the framework you've been given. So there is more of a motivation to actively practice this. That doesn't mean that, people who are identifying as polyamorous or, some version of consensual non-monogamy doesn't indicate that they're necessarily doing this work more, especially as more and more awareness rises about these types
Mm.
of relationships. I like to equate it like the way that, sometimes people with avoidant attachment can kind of manipulate therapy speak to sort of hide bad behavior. I have certainly seen that with, poly frameworks and poly language to avoid relationship, to avoid whatever level of commitment that other person is interested in. So like the idea, for example, that, um, I just go with the flow, boundaries are so not poly, like that is a
Mm.
red flag. There, you'll hear people say stuff like that sometimes, but that is not indicative. Boundaries are super important and necessary for all kinds of relationships to flourish. So that's kind
Mm.
of a long-winded example. I will say that
Yeah.
yes, having partnerships with more than one person simultaneously is a really good impetus to practice these skills and get better at them. But if you're not working on those things actively yourself, whether you have one partner or three, all the same bad behaviors are going to come up if you're not actively working on your personal growth.
And how important do you think it is for people who are interested in this type of relationship to have good role models? Do you find that some people who are living this lifestyle but relationships are maybe a bit more discreet about it? They're not so open because of they're afraid of judgment. That's just a massive generalization again. But would you say that's true?
Oh, absolutely. Because
Mm.
you can see, just go online, right? And
Mm.
there's a lot of pushback of like, oh, this, quote, this never works, or, insert
Mm.
religion or God will judge you. Like there's a lot of fear that comes up for people when they're confronted with, hey, there's actually another way that
Mm.
challenges their belief framework that they've grown up with. That's really scary for a lot of folks. So that unfortunately, rather than being met with curiosity, that's often met with a lot of judgment and shame, which isn't necessary. Because statistically speaking, the most common relationship structure we have nowadays is actually some version of non-monogamy. The
Mm.
conversation is about whether or not it's consensual. So we have a 43% infidelity rate is the latest statistic I saw, which may mean it's actually higher. It's
Mm.
reported infidelity. We have, let me make sure I get the numbers right in my head. Sometimes I flip them. We have the number one listed fantasy for folks is, group sex or a threesome or having another person involved. We have 30%. Let me check on that. It's either 20% or 30% of the population. Oh yeah, 30% of the population curious to explore some version of consensual non-monogamy or some relationship structure that isn't monogamy. We have 20% of the population that has at some point explored something consensually non-monogamous. And depending on which study you read, somewhere between 3 to 7% of the population currently in a consensually non-monogamous dynamic. So the majority of relationships are actually non-monogamous. It's just whether or not that structure is consensual. And there could even be an argument that a lot of monogamous dynamics aren't consensual because we're not actually talking about what that means with each other. You can't consent to something you don't understand. So to put
Mm.
that into framework, even if we're just looking at, 3 to 7%, right, doesn't sound like a lot of people who are currently consensually non-monogamous, actively participating in something other than monogamy. I always flip these two. There are 2% of the world's population is either vegan or Jewish, and 1% is either vegan or Jewish. The other way around. I always flip them. So there
Mm.
are 2 to 3 times as many people practicing consensual non-monogamy as Jews or vegans, or plus. So to give you an idea of how prevalent this actually is, it's not indicative of the representation we're seeing out there. So all that long-winded answer to say, absolutely, examples, mentorship is super, super important because we don't have the representation needed for people to see what healthy relating looks like,
Mm.
especially in polyamorous or non-monogamous relationships.
And there's just so many ways that I mean that term can actually apply to different types of relationships. Could you give us a summary of some of the more common ones for those who are
Well,
on? who don't know?
Oh, you mean as
Mhm.
far as like consensual non-monogamy, the
Yeah,
umbrella term?
yeah.
Absolutely. So polyamory is one that comes up a lot. People assume they're sort of a synonym, but polyamory is actually a type of consensual non-monogamy. And you can have hierarchical polyamory or non-hierarchical polyamory. And thinking of hierarchy less about, who's more important and more about, how ingrained you are in each other's lives. If you're living together, do you have entwined finances? How much time you're spending together? That sort of a thing, less so than like hierarchy of like importance, if that makes sense, or like how
Mm,
much you love someone. That's not what hierarchy means.
mm,
And then even in that, there's kitchen table polyamory. Everybody knows everybody. They talk about everything, whether or not they're dating each other, but everyone's cool.
mm,
And then there's parallel polyamory, where it's like we know we have other partners, but those partners never meet each other. So there's all kinds of different poly dynamics, right? And that's under the umbrella of consensual non-monogamy. Then you have swinging.
mm.
Swingers a lot of times actually consider themselves monogamous, and then just swapping partners is something they do on the side. It's just like one of the fun activities they do on the weekends, kind of thing.
Is that
So
more of a
swingers are
sexual thing? Would you say that swinging's a more of a sexual and the other ones could be emotional? Would that be? Mm,
Yeah, I would honestly like it could be, it's definitely more sexual generally. There can be, communities, groups of friends. I think
mm,
was it the Mormons on TikTok so
mm.
it kind of went viral for all of this. There was a group of them and they all kind of switched and swapped and all that. So that's why it can kind of be considered by a lot of folks who identify as swingers that they're not actually non-monogamous, but technically by the definition of consensual non-monogamy, meaning that you have more than one sexual or romantic partner simultaneously with the full knowledge and consent of everyone involved. Technically, that falls under consensual non-monogamy, but this is where those conversations come in handy. It's important to talk to people about what terminology means to them to make sure you're having a conversation that you both understand. So we've got swingers, we've got polyamory of one kind or another. Excuse me, there's the term open relationship. Sometimes you'll hear monogamish. This is when
Mm,
there's generally, a couple. That's the, quote, primary relationship, and they may have sexual or romantic partners outside of that relationship. They may date somebody together. They may date individually, but that's a larger term, open relationship, open dynamics. You could have a polyamorous relationship of three people
mm,
that can be open or closed. Closed meaning they only date each other, open meaning they date others as well.
mm,
So those are the, more common terms. You'll hear relationship anarchy, but that's more of a relationship philosophy than a structure per se. It's the idea that, why is sex and sexual or romantic relationships considered more important than all of our other, platonic, et cetera, family relationships, friend relationships, and they kind of treat relationships all on the same playing field of importance. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's a
mm.
summary.
Wow.
But does that answer your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, I've watched a lot of documentaries on this topic. I think it's super interesting.
I can
I
talk
might
about this
find it very interesting because just from the outside, 'cause I think a lot of people have a lot of questions about how do people manage it, not just the sexual questions that obviously come up, but also logistically and energetically. So that's like how do people manage that emotionally? The energetics, because it's always very hard. I mean, even with one person, it can be there's a lot to deal with sometimes.
I think
Yeah.
it's an easy thing to think like, oh my gosh, that's more, right? More stuff to manage, et cetera. It's also
Mm.
more support. So
Oh,
say
okay.
you've got partners in a household, there's two kids, there's three people to actually help care for those kids, split the responsibilities, split the bills, et cetera, whatever agreements, they have. You have
Mm,
also a lot more support. So it's not just
mm,
more management. Like anything, whether you have a team of five or a team of 50, if you have the right, SOPs and the processes in place, you can manage your time. So a lot of people love a shared calendar. I love a shared calendar, whether my relationship is, two of us or four of us, or like it just makes everything easier. I do it with friends, I do it with my employees, I do it with everyone I can who's got a piece of my schedule and a piece of my time. It needs to be in my calendar or it doesn't happen.
Amazing. So you talked about travel as well. So tell us about what spicy travel. Do
Oh
you
my gosh. Yes.
tell us about that?
Like it's a whole separate episode. Oh my goodness. So I call myself wanderlustful, a bit of a travel
Uh-huh.
slut. I love exploration, and that's why my company is called Passport to Pleasure. Because what I
Mm,
found was when it comes to, exploring the world, going on a vacation, most people get very excited. They're looking forward to it, the unknown, the new territory. It's very exciting. But when that same exploration goes internal, there's this like fear and this retraction. So I want people to have the same excitement they have for exploring new terrain out in the world for the same exploration within their relationship. So I love promoting pleasure travel as an opportunity to really explore. It can help people take the pressure off, right? Like, okay, maybe we want to explore opening up our relationship. Oh my God, what if the neighbors find out or someone at work is at an event or something like that? Going on to a destination experience, whether it's, a luxury resort for adults only that has play parties at night, or it's a, invite only castle takeover in Europe, or so there's so many different kinds cruises. There's so many different opportunities to explore the erotic lifestyle space. It's a great option for people that are just interested in checking it out and trying it on with the less pressure of like at home base.
So do you find maybe people are kind of like monogamous at home and then just travel and experiment? Would that
There's
be?
absolutely, yeah, there's
Yeah.
absolutely people who do that. There's all kinds.
Mm,
That's why I love language. Yes, there's a lot of, it seems like a lot of new terminology, all the relationship styles we just talked about, and compersion and metamor, and like all this. It's just language to help us connect. And it's for me, it was so validating to learn a word like compersion, like, oh, there's a word for that thing that I'm experiencing. That sort of
mm,
makes it real. Now I have something I can talk to other people about. Have you had this experience? And whether they know that word or not, now I can tell them what it means to me. We can have a conversation about it. Less about, there's no test, right? This isn't
mm.
do you know all the relationship language? And if you don't, you're failing at it. Like it's just tools that help validate our experience, help us understand ourselves so that we can better connect with each other.
Well, I definitely think I think having language and labels can really help you definitely to
Yeah.
understand yourself and also to connect with others when you have this shared term. I remember watching, this is a bit different topic, but I watched a documentary about balloon fetish, and someone was, suffering thinking that I've got balloons turn me on. Then they found lunar community and like, oh wow, 300,000 lunars in the world. So then they would just found out that their fetish was not so strange, and they just kind of found a sense of belonging, I guess. But you
And when we
mentioned,
hide in the shadows, it's so easy to feel
mm,
shame, and there's plenty of people who are going to heap that shame on you.
mm,
But to find community because you have language to express your experience is not only life changing, it can be life saving for some people.
mm. And one word you mentioned earlier is metamor. I didn't know what that meant. Can you explain what that means for our audience?
So it's a term used to describe somebody that you're connected to in a relationship network that you're not actually dating. So the
Mm,
easiest way to break that down is, okay, so I have a boyfriend and he also has another girlfriend. Her and
mm,
I are not dating, we're not romantically or sexually connected, but we're connected through him. She's my metamor and I'm her metamor.
mm. What do you think is the biggest challenge that you've experienced in your journey, or a
Biggest,
common challenge? Mm.
my God, enough hours in the day to nerd out about everything that I want to read. No, I think biggest challenge. God, that's a great question. I feel like that I don't see challenge in a negative way, so I want to be careful about like what I bring up
Mm,
because to me, it anything new is challenging.
mm,
But that's not inherently a bad thing. That means I'm growing, I'm learning something that may or may not work for me. So the whole process has been challenging, but in
yeah,
a really
you're learning.
wonderful,
Mm.
really great way. I mean, yeah, I hope that's a question.
You mentioned earlier, I just written down here, something about the discomfort in relationship. It's sometimes difficult to know, like how much. Obviously, we're not talking about abuse or anything like kind of crazy, but how much discomfort can we learn from? That's something that I'm kind of wondering myself in my own relational journey. How much discomfort is actually adding to my growth, and how much is unhealthy? So, do you have any ideas about that?
Absolutely. So I'm a whore for a metaphor. So I like
I can hear all your words. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
like to use swimming as a reflection of this. So if you realize, oh, actually, I've never gone swimming before, but it looks really fun. I see other people do it. I hear people talking about it. I've seen it in a movie. Seems really cool. I want to go swimming. You don't just go jump in the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic
Mm,
or whatever you are. You maybe you read about it. Maybe you get some lessons. Maybe you
Mhm.
talk to some people in your community. Where do you guys go swimming? You go to the local pool, you do a group lesson, you do some private lessons. You're working with floaties when you first start. You're working in a shallow pool, then the pool gets a little deeper. Maybe the floaties come off and you're using one of those floaty board. It's a process. You don't just get into the Olympics,
Mhm.
you're learning how to do something new. So the whole process to an extent is uncomfortable, but not unsafe. You've got those
Okay.
floaties, lifeguard. You have the tools you need that is required for the right support at every stage. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think emotional safety is so important in any type of relational dynamic. Mm.
Starting with curiosity, I'm aware that I'm curious about play parties.
Mm.
I wouldn't recommend going to your first play party the next day.
Mm.
I recommend investigating. I'm curious to explore consensual non-monogamy. That doesn't mean you go to your first swinger event or, bring somebody home to play with your partner. There's a lot to investigate and get curious about that's going to feel uncomfortable, but that process is important so that you don't cross into unsafe.
Mm.
This again, it's a relation trip. It's not a push button. Like you're on a journey. I hate the term that you're on a journey is so overused. That's kind of
Yeah.
why I say relation trip. But like it really, really is. Like, what's the first stamp you're going to get on your passport to pleasure? Like, let's
Mm.
start there. It
Mm.
doesn't have to be all in one.
Mm.
That's the difference.
Yeah, one of my challenges personally is I've spent a lot of my time, my life single, and then I think when you're single like for a long time, it's really hard sometimes to compromise, because you think, it's just a luxury sometimes not to have to compromise with someone else to kind of make all your decisions as create your life design according to your own wishes. But then when there's someone else comes into it, I've had this challenge, or maybe you can give me some tips. Sometimes I wonder, should everything be on a clean slate and just air all of my concerns, or is it kind of choose your battles? Yeah, I kind of, I kind of, that's one of my challenges right now, not knowing like how much or when to kind of do I want everything to be perfect, or do I kind of let some things go until they kind of become bigger? And I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Really. And
Mm,
there's a few different things that I heard you kind of bring up in
mm,
that question. One thing I want to point out before I dive in further is your only real life partner
mm,
is yourself.
mm,
That's the only relationship you will actually have your entire life,
mm,
no matter how long any other relationship lasts. That's the
mm,
one that is whole life. So that's the majority of your work. There's a lot of work that you can do solo on your
mm,
own, reflection, et cetera. A lot of beautiful practices we have now, various forms of therapy, coaching, et cetera. All kinds of wonderful things you can challenge yourself with.
mm,
We are also inherently a social species, whether it's romantic or sexual, platonic, familial, whatever. We are a social species that thrives in relationship. We actually fundamentally need relationship and human connection in order to not just thrive, but survive. Babies will die without human contact. So there is also a quadrant of learning that is impossible to do on our own. We have to do it in relationship, and it's uncomfortable.
mm.
It's
Yeah, that's
inherent.
that's the point, because I only think, oh, this is uncomfortable. I want to step away. So that's kind of like where the challenge comes in, because you just think, do I really have to put up with this to have the intimacy I desire? You know?
And that's where the inquiry comes from in that self-work that's in comparison
Mm,
with the relational work of, think of the concept of like net positive. Is this a
mm,
net positive relationship? Is the stuff
mm,
that we're kind of working on, first of all, are we making improvements in the things that we're working on, or is it sort of the same thing over and over and over, and there's no adjustment? Mistakes happen. They're super important part of learning, especially in relationship. But if it's the same mistake over and over and over again, even after it's been addressed, that's more of a behavioral issue, and that requires potentially some external support. But things popping up here and there, as long as they're different things, what's the measure of the discomfort to the benefit?
mm,
Is the support, the intimacy, the fun, the play, the personal growth, the learning, is all the stuff that you're getting out of the relationship, the benefits outweigh the discomfort.
mm,
And then also, is the discomfort actually a benefit? Are you growing from that discomfort? And then in addition to that sort of measure, which really only you can determine,
Mm.
you got to have your negotiables and your non-negotiables, is what my dad actually used to call them. So this idea of like perfection
Mm.
is really a hindrance to pleasure. It
Mm.
is not a thing. It's
Mm.
like the shortest way to say it. So there are complementary partners, complementary qualities that you can look for in someone based on the type of life you're looking to build. Look for those qualities. I just read this great post on LinkedIn that we're interviewing for the wrong job. And yeah, we don't like using the words like interview for dating and stuff, but you just go with it. We're interviewing, boyfriend material.
Mm.
Is he hot? Make me laugh. Da-da. Not a co-founder for this business called Life. Are they an
Mm.
actor? That's why I love the word partner.
Mm.
Are they a partner in what you're looking to create? Are you a partner for them in what they're looking to create? Is there compatibility there? Because the chemistry and all that fun stuff will come and go over time. And attraction can actually grow based in compatibility. So again, it's that measure, that net positive. Is there more benefit from the struggle? And is the struggle actually itself turning into a benefit over time?
Well, that's
Does that
really
answer?
powerful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, how's your understanding of or experience of love evolved,
Oh my goodness.
or even definition of love?
Yeah. I mean, nuts and bolts. Love is a chemical reaction, like all
Mm.
emotions, blah, blah, blah. It's a really yummy, juicy, wonderful, complicated, hard, challenging, beautiful, expansive, heartbreaking
Mhm.
kaleidoscope of emotions. It's it's really wonderful. I think I mentioned very briefly that first experience with what became my last monogamous relationship when I had that night with my friends that was agreed upon with my partner at the time. It opened up what I call expansive love. I hadn't experienced anything like this before. Here I was having a really lovely time with someone I cared about, my friend, within the context of the relationship agreement that we had, which is we're friends who love and care about each other. It's platonic for us. We enjoy a lot of activities together. One of them is sex. Here we are getting to do it, or just having a great night. Meanwhile, also having such a deep pull, tie, connection, appreciation, such a yummy feeling for my partner who wasn't even physically present there. And it expanded this capacity I had to show up for my partner as well. It was like I'm actively choosing to spend time with whoever I'm with at any given time, to invest in the relationship I'm investing in because I want to, because I am there, because it adds value, not because we made an agreement 10 years ago and we've never talked about it since.
Mm.
It became such a more active part, like love as a verb. It was really, really juicy. It deepened trust. It was just this expansive, again, is the word that keeps coming up. For me, love is a very expansive feeling. It doesn't run out.
Mm.
It can change, it can dilate, but it's this truly expansive thing that has so many different colors and textures, and it just makes everything so enriching.
Mm, definitely. It reminds me of this the lyric from Amazing by George Michael. It says something like, um, my love's still available and I know you're insatiable. There's a line about, and I think what I find about it is like it's like accepting the whole of you, not just the parts that are convenient, because desire for other people is a very normal thing, but accepting that part as well, which is kind of taboo for
Well,
many people.
that's the beauty of it. Love is a verb.
Mm.
Love, it's an action. Love is a feeling. It's a noun. It's a thing. So
Mm.
you can feel love. Say, for example, you feel love for multiple people at one time, romantic love,
Mm.
sexual
Mm.
attraction. You're feeling that for multiple people simultaneously. Well, everything in our culture tells you, A, there's something wrong. B, you have to choose.
Mm.
Expansive love says no. It acknowledges you are having this experience with multiple people. Now, do you want a relationship structure wherein you only want to be with and invest in one person? Okay, you are allowed to do that, but
Mm.
make that agreement, make the choices that support that. You don't have to.
Mm.
Or if you like to create a relationship structure that supports multiple loves, you can do that. You don't
Mm.
have to, but these are options. We get out of this compulsory relationship model based on emotions, which we can't control. We do not control our emotions. We control our actions.
Mm.
That's relationship. We control the relationships we build, the agreements we make with other people. That's all relationship is. We don't control our feelings.
Oh, interesting. A couple of questions I ask all of my guests. What is the book that changed your life?
Lord of the Rings. No,
What could be any
one
topic. Mhm.
rule them all. I thought you said she was non-monogamous. The one book that changed my life. My goodness. There's quite a few. I mean, and I have I have various, parts of me that have been
Mm.
impacted, I would say, by different types of books. Um, I do love a lot of Brene Brown's work.
Mm.
Um, she's she's we are nerds in spirit together, like
Mm.
how we approach and disseminate, emotional data and human experience. I am a human behaviorist nerd to the
Mm.
core. So attached. It's
Mm.
all about attachment theory. Uh, what are some other great ones? Goodness. Why am I drawing a blank? I read so many books.
Anything related to this topic of polyamory, ethical non-monogamy
Yeah,
that you
got a
like?
whole Amazon store of the books that I
Okay.
had. But I think, yeah, like, oh my gosh, Polysecure, I think is a great, great, great book if you're starting out and you're curious. It's not,
Mm.
just if you're looking for polyamory. It's great if you're just looking to open up your relationship. Just really talks about attachment theory outside of the binary of, 1 + 1 = 2, which I think is really healthy because even if you're monogamous, I coach from the foundational principle that 1 + 1 = 3.
Mm.
They're already in a threesome, even if you're in a monogamous relationship, because there's you, there's your partner, and there's your relationship. And those are three separate entities that require time, attention, and effort. So I love Polysecure. Honestly, even if you're monogamous, it's a
Mm.
great, additional add-on to the book attached. It's done a wonderful job by Jessica Fern.
I interviewed Rachel Krantz on here. She wrote the book
Oh,
Open, and she's
yes, that's
also
a
vegan. But that was a really good book. Had this sex book club here in Barcelona, and we're a group of women, all different orientations and relationship styles, and we used to meet once a month and just take a deep dive into these books. And it was that was one book that we did, and it was so interesting. It's a really kind of fly on the wall accounts. So anyone who's curious is kind of like seeing a memoir of these things unfolding. Also, she's vegan as well. So
I
I thought that
heard
was
of
really interesting. Let's mention
that.
the V word. So I saw recently on Instagram that you mentioned that you've been plant-based for several years.
Quite a few, yes. I went
Yeah.
fully in 2006.
Wow.
So I've just been slowly dying of a protein deficiency over the
Yeah.
last. I like to say that I live, it's very much a choice. I choose to live what I call a consent-based lifestyle. So I don't
Mm.
eat or put anyone in my mouth without their explicit consent.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, because I'm always a bit afraid of talking about that. Well, I've also had Dr. Michael Greger on this podcast,
Mhm.
Joel Furman, and then Corinne Sutton, who's actually a vegan bodybuilder. So I'm super
Oh,
passionate about veganism, and it's
all about
from from
consent.
from from me, it's like kind of a spiritual thing, really. I kind of came at it from a it was an energetic thing for me. I dabbled with raw veganism this year for 2 months. It was incredible. In the summer, I wouldn't do it now because I don't want my comfort warm foods, but it was so interesting.
Oh yeah, I love raw cuisine. I
Mm.
didn't last long for me because I felt like my whole day was just prepping food and eating food, and I
Yeah.
couldn't quite figure out a balanced way to do it for myself. But this is also quite a while ago. But I think like it's something that I'm attracted to informed choice in
Mm.
life. I like to know that I'm making a choice because really we're making a choice whether we're aware of it or not, no matter what we're doing. You are
Mm.
choosing for the most part within reason. Like let's not
Mm.
pretend there aren't, socioeconomic elements at play and, you
Mm.
know, real structures like patriarchy that do impact things. But for the most part, our experience of life, at least, is a choice. And so in order to make a choice, you have to, or in order to consent, I should say, to something, you have to really understand what it is. So that's why I love learning. And so the more I learn, the more choices I can actively make. And I feel like the author of my life.
Mm.
Veganism was one of those for me. Consensual non-monogamy was another. Being the first in my family to get into fitness, health, movement was another. Like
Mm.
all of these are really interesting ways I have found to enrich my life.
Amazing. So you're a woman of many, you like words and metaphors. I'm curious about my next question, which I ask everyone. What's the phrase or affirmation or quote that you live by? You have so
Hmm.
many, maybe.
I mean, there's one that I do, depending on what I'm going through, does come up regularly. I definitely have quite a few, but how you do anything is how you do everything. So I always like to reflect on, am I showing up in whatever the thing is, the conversation, the event, the opportunity, the relationship, whatever, with myself? Am I
Mm,
showing up in the way that's consistent with who I want to be in this world? Because I'm either contributing to that or not. And that's something that is harder sometimes than others to really be honest about. Am
mm,
I doing this in the way that I want to be doing all the other things in my life? And sometimes the answer is no, and I have some work to do.
mm,
But it's been a nice regulator.
mm,
And then I also just like a foundational principle. There's two ways I like to say it, why I do the work I do, why I think it's actually very important to work on relationship. It's not this passive thing. The fun way is if our world leaders were better fucked, we'd be less fucked.
I think I've seen that
What
on
I mean,
your contact. Yeah. In your content. Yeah.
what, yeah, I like that.
Mm,
What I mean by that is genuinely like if our world is divided and so polarized because we are divided at home. We are
mm,
getting in oppositional relationship with our partners. What have you done for me lately? What am I getting out of this?
mm,
Rather than what are we building together? Are we still curious about the same things? If we have better relationships that last longer, I deeply believe that we will have a better world that lasts longer. Without that, without one, we cannot have the other. It's
mm.
foundation. We are a social species.
Absolutely. So where can people find you?
Passport to Pleasure on all the things, Passport to Pleasure. That's the number 2.com.
Hmm.
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Substack with that handle. I'm also on Instagram as Ali Iseman, that handle, which will include that link, I'm sure, as well. But yeah, passporttopleasure.com is the hub where all my online resources, coaching, consulting, everything lives, my events, courses, etc. And you can find all my social media links that way as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for a very orgasmic conversation.
Thank you so much. I love those just ongoing, full body, rippling 20-minute, 30-minute, however long we've been on here, orgasm. Delightful.
Reaching the climax now. The book I'm reading now is My Angel Coach. Receive your divine guidance and feel the angel's love. 63 messages to support and uplift you. And this is by future podcast guest Sue Elliott. And on the blurb it says, imagine having a personal coach who knows you completely and guides you gently with unconditional love and divine wisdom. My angel coach can be the mentor you've always wanted. And this magical book is there for you anytime, day or night. And in this book, you will find lots of short stories and practices to help you that you can apply to everyday life. And it's rather than a book that you would read cover to cover, which of course you can, this is more of, this is how I'm using it anyways, just actually asking a question and then randomly opening it on a certain page and see what the answer is, which has been, it's kind of a lesson of guidance and intuition, because when you read something like that is the answer, you can ask yourself, is this true? And start to see patterns in your own life. Obviously, you have to believe in this kind of thing to actually, for it to work. But I'm a big believer in this kind of thing. And I think often in life, we do look for guidance, often outside of ourselves, but something like this can feel very empowering and and affirming. So that's the book I'm reading now. And I think it's called bibliomancy, when you randomly open a book on a certain page and just trust that that's the page you were supposed to read at that time. And that's something that can be kind of fun to do at any time you are pondering life's big questions. I can't wait to share this interview with you in the future, because it was something that really did blow my mind. And I'm not really literate on angels myself, apart from angel numbers like 1111, or seeing when you see feathers, that could be a sign. But there are many things that could be signs, but we'll reveal more in that episode when it comes out. So that is My Angel Coach. Receive your divine guidance and feel the angels' love. 63 messages to support and uplift you by future podcast guest Sue Elliott. Are you looking for a new sex toy? If so, look no further. Go to svarkom.com, that is SVAKOM.com, and you can use the code Venus35 to get a 35% discount on anything site-wide. I'm always amazed by the quality and variety of the products on svarkom.com, and I have a growing collection that I can definitely recommend. If you're looking for something for solo use or with a partner, definitely check it out. Great quality, great orgasms, and a great discount, Venus35 at checkout. Svarkom.com, or check out the link in the show notes below. Enjoy! Now it's time for this episode's meditation. Please don't listen to this while driving or operating machinery. Instead, take a break from whatever you're doing, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy. I communicate my needs with honesty, clarity, and care. I listen with compassion. I express myself with confidence. I am safe to share my thoughts, feelings, and needs. I can speak my truth with love and respect. I listen with an open heart and an open mind. I choose understanding over defensiveness. I choose patience, empathy, and presence. I communicate my needs with honesty, clarity, and care. I listen with compassion. I allow space for both my feelings and theirs. Healthy communication strengthens my relationships. I am worthy of being heard, understood, and respected. I release the need to over-explain. I choose patience, empathy, and presence. I communicate my needs with honesty, clarity, and care. I listen with compassion. I communicate calmly, even during difficult conversations. I can pause, breathe, and respond thoughtfully. I release the fear of being misunderstood. I trust myself to express what is important. I choose patience, empathy, and presence. I communicate my needs with honesty, clarity, and care. I listen with compassion. I can be kind and honest at the same time. I express myself clearly and directly. I deserve relationships where communication feels safe and mutual. I am open to resolving conflict with compassion and maturity. I choose patience, empathy, and presence. I communicate my needs with honesty, clarity, and care. I listen with compassion. I choose connection over assumption. I can handle uncomfortable conversations with grace. Hard conversations can lead to deeper intimacy and understanding. I stay grounded when discussing sensitive topics. I choose patience, empathy, and presence. I communicate my needs with honesty, clarity, and care. I listen with compassion. I am capable of setting boundaries. I am allowed to ask for what I need. My feelings are valid, and I can express them respectfully. I am becoming more confident in my communication every day. I choose patience, empathy, and presence. To find out more about me and my orgasmic lifestyle, visit venusohara.org or follow me on Instagram. The Orgasmic Lifestyle is also on Substack and YouTube, where you can watch all the interviews with our experts. All the links are in the show notes below. Make sure to search for the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening. Have an orgasmic week, and make sure every day is a climax.